How does the NFL find the next superstars at wide receiver? Stay tuned as we reveal the key traits that the NFL values the most when evaluating receiver prospects. Ryan, learning how to evaluate receiver prospects, it can be a tricky task. There are a lot of guys that put up huge numbers in college, but don't end up panning out. And the inverse also tends to happen where players who maybe aren't as productive end up shining in the league. What are the 4 main traits that you focus on when you're evaluating receiver talent?
Well, it all comes down to creating separation, Joe, but it is all about the different ways that you do so, which is how we have formulated these buckets. The first one, speed, yak ability. The second core trait that we're going to look through is the ability for players to win as route runners, the change of direction skills and the nuance to route running. Number 3, we're going to talk about the physicality, winning through contact, and then we're going to finish out with football IQ and understanding where to find spots in a defense.
I feel like the most obvious when we talk about any skill position prospect is speed. We have to bring up speed. How quickly can you separate from defenders is what leads to touchdowns. It's what leads to 20-yard gains. Guys that aren't fast enough will not succeed in the NFL, but those that have elite speed end up becoming super dangerous weapons, whether it's like Jalen Waddle or Xavier Worthy or Tyreek Hill. Having that extra juice makes prospects super dangerous. When you're watching a receiver prospect and you're identifying a guy that has elite speed, what does that look like to you?
I mean, it's a superpower, and a superpower can win in a bunch of different ways, Joe. As a route runner, it's the ability to threaten a defensive back, right? And it's the ability to work those laterally and vertically and to be able to separate with just straight up foot speed, straight up explosiveness in and out of your breaks, with straight up foot quickness and explosiveness off the line of scrimmage. That is a major opportunity for a player to create easy separation, but then it also can come down to the ability after the catch. Can a guy break an angle? Can a guy create extra effort in the open field and create big plays? It all comes down to their ability to be explosive and to have that long speed to separate in multiple ways.
Let's jump over to the best example that we can have in the last 5 years of a guy who is elite before the catch, while he's catching the football, and after the catch with his speed, that being Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is such an easy example for us to use when we talk about speed because even at the age of 31, him not being as fast as he once was when he first came into the NFL, he's still faster than so many NFL defensive backs. This play in particular, I think, is such an awesome example, Ryan, because right off the jump, he's already blowing past this Jaguars defender who can't keep up with him. He's separating. He's got 2 guys trailing him, and then as soon as he catches the football, maybe some guys would have gotten caught in this situation, but he's gone. He's turning this into a touchdown. You've got guys diving for his feet. Nothing can happen, and he launches this football into the end zone because he has earned this touchdown.
I mean, he's one of the most unique wide receivers that we've ever seen. Obviously, he had a very interesting college career, but in the offseason, Joe, he's just casually running 10-1s in the 100-meter against some sprinters in the track and field area, but you see it all the time. Whether it is after the catch, whether it is as a route runner, his speed is such a big opportunity for him to create separation all over the field. You see him separate not only from the corner, but from the safety and then ultimately win after the catch. That speed is an absolute weapon for a player like Tyreek Hill.
Now, you can be a great athlete, but if you can't run refined routes, you are going to get beat in the NFL. You are going to get locked down by the best corners. Having an ability to not only have efficient changes in your direction while you're making cuts, but also the ability to smoothly move in and out of these breaks. That is all super important when we look for a prospect with great route running. When you're watching a prospect and you see this is a player with premier elite route running ability, what do you notice?
I mean, you start with the physical side, and it comes down to hip fluidity and ability to sink through their hips in and out of their breaks. Does a guy have that just general change of direction? From there, it's the technical side of things, right? Do you understand how to stem? Do you understand how to put guys into conflict? And do you understand how to ultimately attack blind spots? And that can come down to not only the technical side, but the mental side, understanding how to use a defensive back's leverage against them as a route runner and create some instant separation.
Let's jump over to a really fantastic example with a guy who burst onto the scene this past year in Malik Neighbors.
Malik Neighbors was fantastic as a rookie, taking the league by storm. But the big thing about Malik is, yes, he's a talented athlete, but it's the nuance of the position. We see it here on this little stutter and go where he sells an inside breaking route, probably a slant, causes the corner to overreact and break potentially on the inside breaking route, but he's easily able to plant his foot into the ground and then get vertical and hurry and make himself an easy target for his quarterback to create the big play. That is not just about pure athleticism, straight line speed. That is about understanding how to break a cornerback down and to take advantage and create a big play.
So one thing that we talk about with route running, it starts with the release. Malik Neighbors is a guy who has multiple releases that he uses when he comes off the ball. You want guys that aren't just going to do the same thing every single time, because that leads to defensive backs being able to anticipate what a guy is going to do, and it makes it easier for them to be covered. In this situation, he gets off the ball quick, and as you talked about here, the way that he's able to get this defensive back to bite requires an attention to detail by Neighbors to distract him into thinking that he's coming towards the middle of the field and not losing any speed. That is always the biggest thing that I like to talk about, Ryan, with route running, is can you transition and not lose much speed despite overcommitting your body to one direction? This to me was a really good example for showing all of this. Instead of just like a simple go route, he is using that stutter to create an enormous amount of separation. And Daniel Jones sucks and throws this ball way behind him, and he readjusts, he comes down with it, and he ends up turning this into an even bigger gain. It kind of makes you wonder, could this have been a touchdown, and how much more production could Neighbors have had if he actually had some good quarterbacks? All right, we're moving on to the next phase of a big play from a receiver. So we talked about the speed, picking up speed, the ability to change direction. Now when the ball's in the air, how effectively can a guy win through contact, and how good is his concentration when he's coming down with the football? Some of the best receivers in the league maybe make up for a lack of speed or maybe less refined change of direction because they have fantastic hands and they're unstoppable when they're being contacted by defenders. When you're looking for guys who win through contact and also have great catching ability, what stands out to you?
I mean, size is a huge bonus, but it's not a requisite to winning through contact. The biggest thing, Joe, is first and foremost in the air. That is a point of separation, by the way. In the air, you have the ability to elevate, attack the catch points, put your body in proper positioning, and to be physical through contact, because ultimately, whether you're in the air going up or you're coming down, you are going to work through a defender, and you're going to have to win through that catch point and through that point of contact. But also it comes down to the ability to navigate the middle of the field is a big thing. And you don't have to necessarily elevate above the rim, but to work between defenders in crowded windows and in limited windows in general. That concentration and that physicality and that just ability to finish. That's the biggest thing that we're talking about. Finishing in the air, finishing through the crowd, and be able to come down with the football.
Let's jump over to a guy who is one of the best in the NFL at fighting through contact and winning in the air, that being Drake London.
Drake London's a very unique player because he's a pretty good route runner for his size, but that size is what immediately pops off the screen. As we talked about before, it's not a requisite to win at the catch point to be a big body, but when you are 6'4", you are 210 plus pounds, naturally you have a little bit of an advantage here. Understanding on this play to be able to box out this defensive back towards the sideline and then ultimately elevate, win through contact, and come down for a touchdown. You see that body, the body control, and that physicality for London on this catch.
The best possession receivers are always going to find a way to win in these situations. London is much bigger than most cornerbacks, which is hard to come by. And when you're of this size, you need to be incredibly dominant. You need to have consistent and always reliable hands that you're able to extend, use your length, and then just pluck the ball out of the air. Overall, the concentration is something that needs to be emphasized in a video like this, in a clip like this, where you see the ball, you've got a dude who's trying to disrupt that pass, but because you're so much taller and longer, it makes it hard for him to do so, and not allowing any of that stuff to get into your head, grab the ball, come down with it. This is a very simple and also great example of how Drake London consistently wins and why he is a go-to target for anybody who's throwing him the rock. All right, here is the most underrated trait that does not get talked about enough. Football IQ, understanding what to do in situations based on the coverage that is presented to them. How do they evaluate where certain zones are opening up, where certain gaps are freeing for them? And then also, I would include in this, sometimes the route that you run, the play extends, and you have to understand where you can find an opening. I think we've got a really good example of here with Jamar Chase that we're going to show in a second, who is just one of the most natural playmakers in the league that we've seen in some time. But what stands out to you, and how would you truly define that bit of football IQ that will automatically really stand out to you on a scouting report?
I mean, first and foremost, it's about dissecting coverages, right? Like a lot of the things we've talked about already are about beating in a one-on-one situation, right? Like creating separation in man opportunities. But there's going to be a lot of zone coverage that you see and different variations of zone coverage. Can a wide receiver quickly dissect what the coverage that they're looking at, and ultimately, where are the open opportunities and the blind spots in these coverages? If I'm running a slant and I have the opportunity to sit down in a zone or run into a defender, is a wide receiver smart enough to understand that I need to throttle down and find that open window and make myself a available target for a quarterback? We're talking about understanding what a defense is trying to do to you and doing the right thing to be able to find open opportunities.
Let's jump over to this Jamar Chase touchdown to show what we're talking about.
We see a lot of examples of great football IQ on this rep from Jamar Chase. First and foremost, able to see the linebacker on the inside. I think it's Deion Henley, who was a really good player coming to Washington State a couple years ago. He sees him, avoids being contacted to find the open area of the field. After the play kind of breaks down a little bit, you see Joe Burrow point to the left side of the screen, and Jamar Chase is able to be synchronized with his quarterback and find the open space. There's a little bit of ad-libbing. There's a little bit of working outside of the structure of what is supposed to be the route and the concept of this play, but the understanding for what his quarterback wants him to do and the football IQ to be able to find that open grass, that leads to a big touchdown for the Cincinnati Bengals.
I think what I really like about this play is it really shows that you can't just blindly run a route. You need to be smart and aware of what's happening around you. And it's not always the player that is covering you that could impact what you're supposed to be doing on this play. So you mentioned Henley, he ends up stuttering and ended up creating what was a tiny gap, almost like he's run into the basket. He's cut into the basket here where he has to find a way to slip through two defenders. And then the last part, freelancing is an underrated piece of playing receiver and having the eyes and the awareness to keep up with what your quarterback wants you to do. This subtle communication is something that is multiple years of chemistry that has been built up, but you got to give Chase a ton of credit for noticing that Burrow wants him to cut back to the left corner and all of this open space that was freed up because of the coverage that the Chargers are running.
And it's also a very instinctive play by him because you see the other route combinations to the top of the screen. Spacing is a big thing for wide receivers. If he keeps going the direction he's going, you're going to have three wide receivers in the same exact area. Where is the open part of the field? There's nobody on the left-hand side there of the end zone, and he's able to understand that that is the vacated spot that he needs to find.
Thanks so much for tuning in, folks. We will be back with our next How to Scout video. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. Hit that like button and comment below who's your favorite wide receiver in the NFL.